Welcome to episode number 23 of Are You Mad at Me? It's pretty fantastic.
Wait for me, I'm not ready yet. My pop filter's being weird.
So I'm Vickie Morgan, and the guy wrestling with the pop filter over there, that's my partner. He's very, what's the word?
Smart and funny and awesome.
Good with his hands.
I'll turn my mic up a little bit so I can be heard.
Wait, what did you say? Smart and what?
Smart and funny and awesome? Is that it?
Also those things, yes. All those things. Yep,
Am
absolutely.
I loud enough to be heard now? Yes.
I can hear you.
Yes, you can hear me, but can the audience hear me?
Well, check with the crew. Why are you worried about stuff like that, guys? Can we...
Can somebody check my levels?
Yeah. Can we get some more reverb in the monitors? Okay. All right.
Episode 23. Woohoo!
Is that a prime number? Not a fan.
Mm-hmm. Prime numbers are great.
But I'm excited because we're getting up on half a year, which tells me that we have been consistently producing a podcast every single week, which is a big thing.
For 6 months.
Deal. That's a big deal. Well, we're not there yet, but it's a pretty big deal because consistency is important. It's building a relationship. People know what to expect on Wednesday mornings, and you do a great job.
I just figured out the problem with my mic. I'm talking into the back of it.
Okay.
So just hang tight while
let's try to keep a tight ship here, honey.
Spin this thing around.
Yeah.
I'm like, why is it so much loud? Oh, there I am. Holy
some
moly.
behind the scenes stuff here right now.
I'm just going to cut that out. Now I'm at a regular volume.
That's our BTS footage for this week.
Behind the scenes.
Josh talking to the back of
Josh screwing up his microphone.
I don't know if I just talked to this sandbag for a little while.
I went to school for a very long time for audio engineering.
Well, we hired people. There's a crew of people here. You don't need to be doing that yourself. You're one of those divas that...
I did not go to school for audio engineering, by the way.
Asks for the decibel levels and all that stuff. Anyway, I like the mic's on a different side. That's a little different. We're changing things up, obviously.
Well, it's been 23 episodes. It's time to make some changes.
We got a pretty exciting episode. Excuse me. Very exciting episode this week.
Should we start over now that I fixed my mic?
No, I think you should leave that in. You leave in all my gaffes and stupid stuff, so why wouldn't we...
You never gaff.
Oh, I think the clips would say otherwise.
Oh, gaffer.
I think if you're watching just the clips on YouTube, you would think Vickie's kind of an idiot. I know. But it's because of our editing team.
Videos like that.
Our 1 pound gorilla is the editing. We're going to start calling it the 1 pound gorilla.
801 pound gorilla.
No. We've watched Price is Right. You have to go $1 because then there's anything between $1 and 1 and 800 is we would win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen,
anyway, if you don't know, 800 Pound Gorilla seems to do a whole bunch of work with Nateland Podcast. So I just want to put that, because that'll show up in the show notes. And then, if you're looking for something with Nateland, we might show up in the algorithm.
We should just say it 5 or 6 times.
Then eventually, if we're showing up in search results, eventually we might be in the same state, maybe. Go to a show. I don't know.
Things are happening.
Things are moving, and man, oh man, we've got guests, I think, for the next 3 episodes.
So this episode is
awesome.
The second episode of the Are You Mad at Me podcast to ever have a guest, and so we had
historic. It's an historical moment.
It's historic in many ways.
How so?
It's historic in the fact that it's only the second time we've had a guest, but it's also historic in the fact that we interviewed a genealogist.
Oh, that's not right. That's not the word. Is it?
Yeah.
Genealogy.
I mean, genealogist is like somebody that studies genealogy, right? Like historical.
It's a little deceptive. It sounds like it's like a DNA thing.
Like a gene doctor.
Yeah.
It might be. I could be wrong.
Or denim. It could be a denim doctor.
Please leave us a comment and let me know how I'm wrong.
So I did see...
A denim doctor? A genealogist.
Takes him... Once he gets there, though, it's like...
Or somebody that studies your aunt from around the bay. Aunt Jean. Yeah.
Wow. I hope Blayne appreciates all these gifts.
So there was back when we lived in Portland.
I said, I'm talking in internet language. I said I hope he appreciates all these gifts, but
all these gifts. When we lived in Portland, whenever we would go to the hospital, we were there. I feel like I saw this a lot when you were pregnant and we were going to the hospital for pregnancy stuff. They had all this marketing stuff about hygiene, like signs around the hospital. So they actually got all the people that worked for the Maine Med system, which was probably had hundreds or a billion, I don't know, a bunch of people working for this big hospital system, and they got everybody that worked there named Gene. So there was men and there was women and they were spelled differently and stuff, but it was like, say hi Gene, and it was like it'd be some dude wearing like a janitor name tag, and his name was Gene. Custodian. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Just carry on.
And anyway, his name was Gene. It was like, hi Gene.
I didn't pay attention to the poster because I was too busy growing your children in my body.
Yeah, I didn't.
I was busy.
I didn't have anything to do.
You know, we had like 7 false starts on Henry. We were at that hospital a lot. I remember one time I went in on my birthday and I saw my chart because you can order, like in the U.S., you can actually get your medical chart. You can get a copy of it. And
it said you were, what was it? They said about Elaine? She was trouble. She's It
wasn't quite as bad as Elaine
troublemaker.
Bennett, but the notes, like I know I went in with like contractions and stuff on my birthday, which was still 3 months out from delivery, which turns...
Your birthday's in September and Henry was born in January.
That's right. So we were in there in September.
We were like, oh, this is bad.
Yeah.
This is too early.
Like, it's too early. So I'm in there with having contractions and stuff. And then, so in just a conversation while we're waiting for the doctor, and it's completely different in the US. Like, it's not like here when you're waiting for 3 days or something.
Here in Canada.
Anyway, I said something like, oh, it's my birthday today, and this is not how I wanted to spend my birthday. But, you know, and I said, and I haven't had birthday supper or anything like that. And so she put a note in my chart. Patient says she's usually stressed on her birthday. That's probably the cause of this, whatever. They were... But I'll also tell you, do you remember that night?
Yeah.
They were going to send me over to maternal... Obviously, it was meaningful to me. I remember they were going to send me over to maternal field medicine and give me, not Pitocin, because that makes labor. They were going to give me some drug that stops labor. And it was like a yucky thing that was going to happen. Like, it wasn't like a side effects kind of thing. It was like, oh, you're going to be miserable, but we're going to feed you this drug to stop labor. And I was like, why don't we just wait? And they were like, no, we're going to, when the doctor comes back, we're going to go over and hook you up on this drip and whatever. And I was like, how about if I just tried some food? Because I haven't eaten today.
Maybe just give me some freaking hash browns.
You're not a, what do you call them? Inpatient? You're not a...
Oh, you didn't earn your food because you weren't paying to be in there.
Well, I just wasn't in the hospital, so they won't like. And I was like, well, what if I just go?
You weren't admitted.
Yeah, I wasn't an admitted
so you
patient.
didn't.
I was just in the room.
You didn't get your tots.
So if I'm not mistaken, I believe we went over to the cafeteria and got some lunch, and the contraction stopped. So there you go, medical industry. You can say no.
I got the evening off work. You got some food. We had a little party.
Yeah, I remember there was another time where you rushed home because I thought my water broke. And you had a boss at the time was kind of a dick. And he said, you were like, I got to go. I think Vickie's in labor. I think her water broke. And your boss said, I mean, either her water broke or she pissed herself. And anyway, the baby wasn't born that day.
It was just that awkward.
Yeah. The baby wasn't born that day. I'm not going to say anything else. I don't think I peed in my pants, but I mean, I was pregnant and growing this giant-headed baby.
Not me. I wasn't the baby.
No, but you contributed the giant, massive heads that they both have and just destroyed body parts of mine. So anyway, speaking of birth and genealogy and passing on DNA and giant heads.
Family trees and whatnot.
Family trees, and it felt like a bit of a tree. I got to tell you, it was like giving birth to a giant oak both times. Joe was a dream because he was only 26 weeks along. So he came out like he was.
So there was that.
He was the easiest birth. So we got to give him that one.
Yeah.
But the other boys were
as far as
huge,
getting babies out.
Exactly the same weight. Both 7 pounds, 7 ounces. In Canadian, that's like 3 stone or something.
46 inches long.
It took them a week to come all the way out because it was like, there's the head, and 3 days later, there was the feet. It was, they're huge babies. Anyway.
We got an interview we got to get to.
I know. Very excited.
I started talking about Maine Med, and you just ran.
Well, because you were looking at the damn posters. No wonder. But I will say, I did say this earlier this week to somebody. When Henry was born, 36 hours of labor, we had a fantastic doctor, like probably the best doctor in the whole state at the time. He was highly recommended. My friends all went to him. He was wonderful. As soon as Henry popped out, within the first few minutes, the doctor looked at us and said, you guys should give classes on how to support each other through delivery. Because 36 hours, Josh was there for every single contraction, holding my hand, rubbing my back, getting me whatever I needed. He didn't eat because I didn't want to eat. And so he just was there with me, and he didn't want to bring in food to, make the smell turn my stomach or whatever. So 36 hours he sat next to me and just was there, and the doctor was beyond impressed. And so when he said we should do
I wasn't doing any work. You were doing all the work.
See, this is the kind of stuff that the doctors love to see, because there's some dads in there that are like, oh, I'm feeling faint. And Josh had no personality, no symptoms whatsoever. He did not complain a single moment, and it was all.
I think it's time
me.
to tell you that I had a human, very human, realistic doll made with my face on it, and I was at home the whole time. It was
a clone.
It was just a big pillow of me sitting there.
In case I didn't tell you, thank you for the giant-headed babies, but also thank you for sticking with me through every single moment of every birth. You're an absolutely fantastic partner. So 23 episodes in, Oh, see, I didn't do anything. It was just happening to me.
I mean, you had to get the baby out. You didn't have a choice.
There was no choice.
I had a choice.
Once they were in there.
I made the choice to be awesome. You had no choice. You had to get the baby out.
I mean, what else are you going to do? There's like, you can crawl up a wall, you can hang from the rafters, but there's still a baby in there, so it's got to come out some way.
It's coming out one way or another.
So anyway, it was a nightmare.
So
the delivery was a nightmare, and we don't talk about that very much because it's like, oh, but you have this beautiful baby. Yes, but my body exploded.
Yeah.
And I was lucky I didn't need any, what do you call them? When they cut you. Cesarean section. I didn't need any cesareans.
I thought you were going to say episiotomy.
Oh, God, no.
That's
Gross.
a different cut.
Gross. Had one of them, too. But actually, anyway, they take your whole guts out. Like, they take everything inside you and put it out on the table and take the baby out, and then they put all your stuff back in. I mean, that is traumatic. And you're supposed to be up walking around a couple of hours later. So, I mean, we don't talk enough about the deliveries and how babies get into the world. It's just like, oh, a beautiful pregnant mom, you're glowing. And then it's like something from Alien happens, like the movie Alien.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And then we're like, hey, you got a great baby now, so probably not talk about, don't scare people with. So anyway, anyone wants to write a book about your birthing experience, get in touch with me. I'm a big fan of those stories. People are messed up after deliveries. I don't know if you know that or not, but it's like a pretty traumatic, like if this happened to you right now, if your bottom half opened up and a human crawled out of you, you'd talk about it for a day or so.
I would mention it.
And if then,
I would
imagine,
write some letters.
You'd let a letter campaign. But can you imagine if somebody came to you and were like, but look at your baby.
Yeah.
Look at this beautiful thing that crawled out of you. And it's like, yeah, but my body, it doesn't matter. You're a mom now.
Shut up now.
Yep. You don't mean me.
No, that was the other person talking.
Yeah. Anyway, read the hat.
Yeah.
We have a series of hats. I'm gonna start using them because they still had tags on them. When we were making that documentary series years ago, we had all these comedic hats to put on. You had a bunch too.
Did I?
Yeah, and they're still out hanging on the wall. So I've got a bunch of wigs, bunch of hats. I'm going to try them all out because I'm ready to mix it up.
Fun time.
So this is the second time we've had a guest on the podcast. We have 2 more episodes coming up. This is only our first guest from Tennessee, though, that I'm very excited about.
Yeah.
Very, very excited. You've got to stay tuned because it is getting wild on Are You Mad at Me? Absolutely wild. But anyway, this was a great conversation. This is your cousin.
So my cousin's my cousin is Kim, and Kim's husband is Blayne, and Blayne is a very awesome guy, very, very cool. We met Blayne and Kim. Kim's my cousin, but I had never met her until
the reunion.
We had a family reunion 13, 14 years ago. Mm-hmm. Henry was
walking, so he was at least a
year or 2 old, and their daughter was 6 months or 10 months or
she
a
was
year
also
old. Anyway,
walking, so.
little kids. So anyway, we had never met them before, and then we met them at the family reunion. We kept in touch through social media because they live in Tennessee, and we never did. And we've just been
so far.
Yeah. So we've been, I'd say, social media close. We've never been to each other's houses. We've only talked in person one time, but we've been following each other on social media, and so the whole point is, a few months.
I feel like I know him very well. We have very similar opinions on lots of things, and it's social media at its absolute best. The way we
Blayne started doing genealogy research on his own family, and then he enjoyed it so much that he'll tell the whole story. But he's doing it. He's got a company now called Blayne's Family Research, and it's really cool. And he did a report for Vickie because he wanted to learn about doing research in Canada.
Yep.
And anyway, we talk about that whole thing. It's a long interview, and it's a lot of fun. And
stick around till the end, though, because I did find out some cool stuff since this interview.
Yeah.
So stick around just for a couple minutes after the end of this interview, and
we'll add on.
So there's some advice in there.
That's the thing about that's what one of the things we touch on is you start learning a little bit about your family, and then it's like, oh, I want to learn more about this branch of the family or about this person or about whatever. And Blayne can do more research, or you start talking to your other people in your family, and then they tell you more stuff that you didn't know. And it's like this big puzzle starts coming together, and you start learning about your whole So,
and he's a good guy. He's someone that we'd actually trust him to look into that stuff and keep everything, confidential and all those things. He's really great. So anyway, you're going to find out yourselves. This is our interview with
Blayne Clements.
Blayne Clements from Blayne's Family Research. So, Blayne Clements, welcome to Are You Mad at Me?
This is great. I am so happy to be here.
I know you've been listening.
I've listened to your podcast, to your music, read your books. This is great. This is fun.
It's so nice to meet a fan. I'm just. Quite honestly, you and your wife have been so supportive of every single thing we've ever done. Like I know there was a documentary we made, and we were at the very end of it, and we needed some funding to just push it past the goal line, and it was like, oh, Kim covered all of it. It was amazing. You guys have been absolutely amazing. I can't thank you enough. So it was great to actually talk to you. I know we've kept in touch for a long time on social media, which is crazy.
Yeah, I don't know if we've talked physically in like 12 years. Like one afternoon in North Carolina 12 years ago for a few hours, and somehow maintained contact, and now here we're talking for our second time ever.
I think trauma unites people. Because to be fair, we all stuck out like sore thumbs at a very of course we were in Mulberry Creek. That's where the reunion was held, and we were surrounded by a lot of your people. And I'm Canadian, so I didn't fit. And we were looking around going, all these people they have so much in common. And then we look over and it was like Blayne and Kim with their little girl. And I was like, oh, they look miserable too. Yeah, we're grateful for social media because it was like an instant connection, and we had little kids at the same time who they clicked, and I mean they're like teenagers now. They're taller than most of us, so it's pretty amazing. But we clicked, and I felt like we had a lot in common, and we've kept in touch because I feel like we're very similar people. I hate that we're so many miles away from each other, but I feel like that gap is starting to close, Blayne. We're getting closer to Tennessee all the time.
Nate Bargatze's down here, so
I know.
Uh-huh.
Before I forget, I do want to give a shout out to the crew that traveled down to Tennessee to be in your location.
Yes, our road crew.
Our road crew was absolutely fantastic. We flew them all down, and I'm hoping the next time they make that trip, we will go with them, and so we can catch some Nate and Dusty shows. And we actually have Dusty's wife Hannah on the podcast
coming up soon.
Yeah. Oh, we're
Seriously?
yeah. Oh, I can't even.
She's a writer and
she's
comedian,
amazing.
yeah.
So I followed all the boys' wives. Because you never know. You never know might come up in conversation. But it turns out Hannah is a writer and a mom and a Canadian and a comedian and all these things. And we clicked instantly. And we've been in touch for the last little while. And we just clicked. And so she's back into writing now. She's on Substack. So we have really connected. And she's going to come on and talk about possible book and talking about her all of her writing and stuff. So we're pretty excited. So it's like the gap is closing. Like we're closer to Tennessee every day.
That's
and in
great.
my mind... In my mind, I'm already there. So
I see her on his reels, like his shorts and stuff. Yeah,
yes,
that's
very
awesome.
very
You
funny.
made that connection.
She's very, very funny. And I think the first thing I saw from Hannah was she was doing a video. She had like a kid on her hip and another one on the floor, and she was putting in a casserole into her oven, but it was in a plastic container, and it was like just a frazzle. And she's hilarious. And I love her, absolutely love her. And so we have so much in common, just so much. So I'm just so excited, and it'll just be like a natural, like it was just an honest to God connection where we have so much in common. So it was just really, and the self-publishing thing seems to really be connecting people. So I'm thrilled about that. So Blayne, of course, has a side. So this is not the main thing that he does. He's been working. He has a real job that he does many hours a week. But he has been doing this side project for quite a while. And it's been really fascinating to watch what you're doing. And you've been doing more on social media and advertising a lot more and letting people know what you do. And Blayne reached out and offered to research my family, which is, I didn't warn him, I'll tell you. I didn't warn him what he was getting into. But he offered to to do some research into my Canadian family. Of course, we're all, I think, mostly based in Newfoundland. But he offered to do some research on a Canadian to see how far he could get with the resources with the online stuff. So Blayne, let's go back a little tiny bit. Tell us how you got started. How did you get Blayne's family research? What was the point? What was the motivation there?
So like in 2008, my maternal grandmother was that stage of her life where she was moving out of her house, going to live with other people, right? Her daughters. And she gave me 2 volumes of family genealogical records. Some guy in the 80s had, so old guy alert, right? So some guy in the 80s had went around, because he didn't have a computer, he'd run around door to door to do genealogy, which I would not do this hobby if I had to go door to door. But that's what he did. And his final little book was typewritten Xerox copies of newspapers and pictures. It was quite large. And when she moved, she gave it to me, and I thumbed through it and she had newspaper clippings stuck in there, I guess, that were matched with people. And I always thought that was an interesting book. I always went back and was thumbing through it and reading the story, seeing the pictures. And then when my kid was born, you know, when you have a kid, you're at home, you're up at odd hours, you've got a lot of, you're here. I'm just here in case Kim needs me, right? Which when everybody's sleeping, nobody needs me, right? So I figured I'm going to jump into ancestry.com and see what this is about. And I've been doing it for 15 plus years, right around, I would guess.
Yeah.
And then last fall, I'd always said I would, so I'd help family and friends, right? If they had a question, if a friend had a question, I would research it. And then last fall, I thought I could do this on the side, right? My long-term goal was I want to retire at some point, and I need something that's not physically active, right? I'm not going to be able to work in the yard. I'm not going to be able to do the things that I want to do physically. So I need to find something to do that keeps me going, and decided I should do this for other people. Maybe I could charge, maybe there was a service I could provide, and set out, I think that was in November, is when I finally decided to do this, right? And I didn't know what I was doing. By day, I'm a state employee, right? So there's no marketing, there's no statements, there's nothing like that. I'm an auditor, I'm a certified fraud examiner, which on the surface would seem to have nothing to do with ancestry. But I find that it does have a lot to do with ancestry. The process is the same, right? If somebody comes to me at work with a fraud allegation, it's my job to go through the data and figure out what story fits the facts, and does it fit that somebody's doing something wrong or not doing something wrong. I find ancestry is the same, right? Somebody comes to me and says, hey, I'd like to know if this family story am I Irish? Is this family story that I've heard for decades, is that true? And then my job is to jump into the data and use the systems that I've learned to try to figure out what is true and tell that person's story, whether it's the one they think is real or not. And so I decided to do that in November. I had very low goals. My goal was to make enough money to buy myself a Chromebook so I didn't have to borrow my wife's work computer, and to pay for the subscription service. That was all. I thought if I could just break even and maintain my hobby, that would be great. And I fell backwards into the holiday season, right? And so when you post, hey, I can do this, I had people come out of the woodwork, friends and family, saying, I don't know what to buy my dad. I'll just pay you, and you can do this. This will be a great Christmas present. That happened several times. I hadn't thought about filling the gap for somebody who doesn't know what to buy their parents. You know, that was a surprise, but it was nice. And from November to February, I had, I think, 6 clients. I would say more than half of them buy more time, right? They come back, the story I tell, they're interested, they want to know more. Yep. So they repeat business. And so by the end of February, I'd met my goals. Right? I could buy a laptop, and I paid for my subscription. But then the business fell off, right? Then the holidays are over. I've kind of tapped friends and family and needed to figure out, well, how do I get past that circle of people? And that's been a struggle, but that's, I guess, maybe about the time you guys started doing your podcast, which is all about self-publishing and marketing. And I've listened to every episode except for the one you just dropped today. I'm only like 20 minutes into it. It takes me like 3 days to get through them.
Understandable.
It's a big one. Today was a big one. I listened back to it last night, and because there was like 7 different times where I was like, I don't think we should broadcast this. And when I watched it, I was actually like, you know what? I got to honor the person that said all those things. And, it was a big one. It was big. Emotionally for me, it was a really big one. Not any kind of heavy subjects or anything, just, wow, I'm really being real. I'm being authentic. And I think that's kind of that whole vein of marketing and valuing yourself has kind of been the thread, I think, throughout the podcast.
I have a question about what you were just talking about. When you say you have repeat customers, like, so you start off, you did a report for us, and it was you got so far in the amount of time that you donated to us for this, right? That was so that somebody would pay for an initial amount of time, and then if they want to hear more about certain family members or whatever, you would just keep digging farther into it. So does that mean you just keep all the information keep a report so you know, like, oh, these people have been here before, so I'm going to go into this family? Or is that something that's saved on Ancestry.com? Or how does that, like, you have like a huge hard drive full of people's, you know what I mean? Like, as an editor, I'm always thinking about, like, how do you save all this
File
information?
space.
Right. As a fraud examiner, I want to make sure I maintain people's privacy.
Exactly.
Right. So I create everybody a tree on Ancestry because that's the tool that I'm used to. I set it to private, so no other Ancestry users can see it. And I've had other Ancestry users say, "Hey, you're researching this person. Can I see your tree?" And I say, "No, it's not my information. I just happen to have it."
Nice.
And so I put it out there. It's private, and then I keep most everything in there just because it's easy. But I do keep the reports separate, and I find that once I know your family, your names, where you're from, right? I've already got the report built. That's second. So usually everybody has bought 5 hours. That's my package. That I offer different packages, but everybody buys the 5 hour package. But the second 5 hour package, I already know your family, where you're from, the names, and so I am way more efficient with that second buy than the first buy.
That's cool.
So that's super helpful.
I have a question a little further back than that. Did you have trouble? You said you just started doing it like as a hobby, just kind of for fun and helping people out. But did you have trouble establishing, and this might be a girl thing, this might be something men don't struggle with, but did you have trouble putting a price tag on your time and what the actual service was worth?
Yeah, so that's great question. So when I started, I had no idea what to price my product at. And so it was Christmas and it was college buddies, right, who calling me up saying, I need this for my dad's present or vice versa, something of that nature. And so I think I was charging, I think it was 20 or 30 bucks an hour. I thought that was fairly reasonable. And but then you start to think, well, when people immediately cough up the next 150 bucks, like don't even bat an eye at the second 150, then you're like, well, wait a minute.
That's 10 hours of your time.
That's 10 hours of my time. Nobody's batting an eye at this. Perhaps I'm low. And I had two customers, good friends of mine, and when he saw his report, his first response was, you need to charge more. Right? I mean, he was like, this is not this. I'm just. He was kind of an entrepreneurial guy, and he was like, you're underselling. You've got to charge more, and that's hard to do when it's your friends, right? I want to immediately cut them a deal, And I had one of my clients, another good friend of mine, and she said, I want to hire you. I'm curious. You've done other people's stuff. I want you to do mine. How much is it? And I said, it's $50 an hour, but 4 is 200. But since you're a friend, and she goes, no, stop.
Exactly. Wouldn't you want to spend more because you're my friend? That's exactly it.
I was going to cut her a deal, and she said, no. I hire people. I hire her. She said, I hire people, and that price range is fine. Stop. Yeah. Just stop there. Don't say anything more. That's hard to do. You know.
The cringe after you say how much it is like, please don't hate me.
And I think it's funny how like it always seems like it's the first or this, like it's early on. You're like, I should have charged more. They were way too happy to pay that. Like that, but that's how you figure out like where your range is, and because we've done that 100 times with editing. It's like we've never done like a live stream before. Like how do we charge for it? And it's like, you give them this wild, crazy number, and they're like, "Okay, sure, sounds great." Like, oh man, shoot.
Well, we're meanwhile we're like full body cringe, going, "I can't believe we asked for $500." And then we went to an event last year, and Josh wanted to charge $250, and I was like, double it and add HST. And so we're in for $500, and we're at the event, and they raised like $172,000 for research, and it was like,
oh wow.
$500 to live, and it was, so we know now, and we've done that a few times where we're at the event and we see the numbers that are floating around for what they're doing, and they're so happy to pay a couple $100. Like, oh, we really undercut.
I mean, something goes in. There's something to say for what feels good for you too.
Of course,
as the provider of the service. Like, if that $20 an hour felt good at first, awesome, and then next time $50 an hour feels better.
I think people make the mistake too of locking themselves in. Well, I started this and I couldn't possibly now show I'm going to charge this much extra, but I think there's some giving yourself a little bit of freedom to evolve as you realize how much it's worth in your time. And because I don't want to, I'm pretty sure as a fraud examiner, you're probably making more than $20 an hour. Your time is valuable. You have a kid, you have a family, like your time, that's 10 hours outside of your regular job. And it is a service. I mean, it's fascinating what you're able to find out. So that's like, I love that.
I did use, I don't know, Fiverr. I don't know if that's a Canadian thing here. It's okay. So the 2 hours, I did go there because there's people who do this on that website, and I did use them to price, and they were so low. I just, and if you click on a genealogist there, what I found was they're I mean, $20, $15. It's really cheap. And if you read their bios, they're English majors. They're getting, their skill is telling the story, right? And so my skill is getting the data.
Actual
right?
detail.
So I think it'd be interesting to like run your family tree through one of those Fiverr people, and then do it yourself or whatever. Like compare to what you spend an hour on and what they spend an hour. Like how much different, like how much farther you get into it. Because I know like as a graphic designer, video editor, like I've seen the people on Fiverr that are like, I'll design a logo for you for $5, and it's like, are you like,
right?
What?
Yeah.
Like, but then when you see like the process of a graphic designer doing a logo for you, when you're paying maybe $1,000 for a company or whatever, it's like there's a lot that goes like they But when somebody's like, oh, just here, try this, and it's like, oh, that's good enough logo or whatever, you know what I mean? So I would imagine that what you're doing is probably pretty fantastic compared to especially compared to what you get for $20 on Fiverr.
Do you guys ever have the issue of I like what I do, right? I could do this all day long, and so
for
my
free.
first clients, that's right, my first clients would be like, yeah, here, do 5 hours. And I do this while the kids and the wife are sleeping in on Saturday and Sunday, so I'm just up here doing it. And I lose track of time because I do it. My wife says that's good for your mental health. Do things that you lose track of time.
Yeah.
However, doing things that you lose track of time when you're charging people, right? I would look up and be like, oh, I just spent 8 hours.
Yeah.
I'm getting paid for 5, and being like, oh, but it's my friend. I found some good information. Like just learning to dial that back and keep up with my time and just say, hey, in the report, there's more I could find here. Yeah. But you're out of time.
We're currently formatting a book for somebody, and it's a fantastic book, and I could not put it down. So I was like bleary-eyed 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning going, oh my God, this is so over budget. Like I did not mean to do this many hours, but the book was great and I didn't want to stop, and it got so far into it. But it's been a couple times now on this same project where I've just gone so far beyond, because I love what I'm doing in that regard. And it's like, it's hard to kind of, and it's also okay for people to pay. Like people, I see people, someone told me the other day that their kid is in like a band, like they, to go to music lessons or whatever. And it was $400 a month for 2 times a week. So quick math is like, that's what, $50 an hour for someone to show your kid how to play country roads. Like,
so people will pay for stuff that they
want. And they find money for the things that they want. And I think I'm figuring that out too, that it's okay to exchange money for goods and services that they want because there's a value to them, and figuring out that sweet spot of not call huge amounts of money, but somewhere in between where it's like the value that I'm providing, it's not the steak, it's the sizzle. People aren't actually buying the actual meat. It's the experience of being in the backyard with the bar. And you, of course, do a lot of smoking meats and all that stuff here, like big meat guy.
I find too the deliverables matter, right? So at the beginning, I gave everybody I give everybody a PDF file, right? So they can't mess up what I gave them, right? So that the data is consistent. And then I give them a Word file or a Google Docs file so that they can add to it, right? Because inevitably I give them and they give this to their dad and they sit around the table and they talk about it and there's things being said. I'm like, well, I want you to capture that and build on it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
But then I thought, well, when people are sitting around the table, a file really isn't the right medium, right, to share at Christmas. And so that's when I got with I work at a university, we have a print shop, so I get them to print my stuff. And so I started offering that, right? Like, here's a file and I'll offer you this paper. It's bound, it's nice, all this stuff. And I found nobody wanted to buy it, right? And I thought, well, if nobody wants to buy it, because I just gave you the file, you know what I mean?
Right.
You can hit print and sit around your table. So then I thought not to be greedy or anything, but I thought my model's wrong. I'm giving away my product and they can share that with all of their family for free. And
Yep.
so then I started flipping that. Right now you get a paper copy. And if you want a PDF and all that, then you got to pay a little extra.
Yeah.
Um,
For shipping
and
and printing.
yeah, so doing you guys is fantastic because the week before I shipped 2 reports, one to Tennessee and one to Lower Alabama. It cost me less than $4.
Yep.
I'd never done it. I never had an international client before, right? And so when I went to send you guys, they were like, "Oh, it's $30 or
Yeah.
something," and I was like, And then okay, I got to learn, right? If I'm going to do overseas stuff, that $3 don't go very far,
That's a
and
good
I've
Right.
got to
point, yeah.
I've
The
got to
postal service
adjust
is
that.
not ideal. And sending stuff down to the U.S. is the same way. It's very expensive. Anything beyond like I don't know, measurements, but more than a centimeter, more than quarter, like half of an inch or something like that, it gets very
Yeah.
expensive if it's a package. But a document, you can send pretty much, you can stuff anything down in an envelope and it's fine.
Well,
But those are things that you figure out along the way.
the guy told me because it was spiral bound, it was
Yep.
no longer a document, and I thought,
Oh.
I think the guy was, so again, it's a university bookstore. They know me, and I'm thinking this guy's probably like, "Hey, I don't want this to come back. So let me go ahead and
Yeah.
tell you how to do
Yeah.
it the right way." And I thought, one day I think I might just send you some paper that's spiral bound and act
Yeah.
like it's not a package because I'm curious if it actually gets stopped, right?
Well, the lady we had on a couple of weeks ago, Nicole, she published a book where she had she went to a local print shop and printed off copies and spiral bound it, and they told her exactly the same thing, that the spiral makes it a package. And but if it's folded like a book, if there's not an actual spiral in it, because that's a piece of plastic, maybe it's different if it's like just a folded document, because you could send a 30-page report, with an alligator clip on top of it, and it wouldn't be maybe it's the pack. I don't know. But it's something to look into a little further, because it is worthwhile to pass off those costs to other people, because they will pay for it.
Sending out, giving somebody the final product of like the paper product at first. It sounds like those proofs you used to get in school when you get your picture taken. It's like here's what you could have, because everybody, I feel like everybody uses PDFs and digital files for everything now, to send and share and to edit and all that stuff. So like that's the thing that you would want. So that actually makes a lot of sense. It's like here's a paper copy. You can't edit this because it's already printed. It's on paper. And if you want more, I'll give it to you. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. I also had a client, like I had AI build me this graphic. I didn't have one, and it did one that was fine. So that was my cover page, and then I gave it to a client, and their answer, their question was, "Man, you have this, ho hum graphic on the front page, but if you flip to the back, there's pictures of my great grandpa in his police uniform. There's why in the world would you not put one of those pictures on
that's
the
good
front?"
feedback.
Instead of your logo.
It was great, because then when you open it up,
Yeah.
it's maybe a picture you've never seen before. I don't know.
Right.
Or I had one client say, "Well, I've seen that before. How in the world did you get it? It's at my mom's house." And it's like, well, somebody's uploaded it, and
No way.
Yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
got it.
So we've had the opportunity a few times to do legacy videos for people. And this seems really morbid. It felt really morbid. I was wondering what we were putting out to the world, because it seemed to happen a lot there in a little cluster of time. But people were asking for videos to be played at funerals and at memorials. And then I did a legacy video about my uncle. And so I'm wondering if there's a way to, sometimes the formats that people ask for things back from Josh, they will ask for it on a thumb drive, or a lot of people don't have the actual capacity to download a file from their Google Drive. Like these are things that we do all day long, so it feels normal. But I'm wondering for the deliverable, if it would be worth your while to do a PowerPoint or like some sort of digital video-based thing that they could present it with, big explosive music, and then your grandfather died, and
Right.
But I just wonder
That'd
if
be
there's
good.
something there, because if you're telling people's, like, once you verify that's, the actual ancestry, like, it seems like it could be a big splashy, maybe there's a way we could help with that.
Yeah, I've learned you've got to. It can be dense, right? Here's this.
Yeah.
You guys have seen it. Here's
Yep.
a census. Here's a census. Here's there. Who's there?
Yep.
All
You
that.
gotta filter out the stuff.
But those articles and pictures are fascinating.
Yeah.
Like, that's the stuff, that's the real meat. That's like, people hang on to that. They print it off and, put it in their wallet kind of thing. And it's pretty fascinating stuff. It is very fascinating. I asked around from my family, because I do have a report here that you've done for us. And just for fun, I asked around to verify some of the information and see what I could find out, because I am 48 this year, and I have relatives that I have never, ever heard of. That, like the last funeral we were at, someone said, we have cousins everywhere, because my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, had his mom had him and 2 brothers and I think a sister, but before she met his dad, there was 22 other kids with another man. And so I, just for fun, asked around. Now, as we'll find out, there's only 2 left in my mom's group. There was 10 of them altogether. Neither one of them would tell me what the lady's maiden name was. I don't know why I don't know why.
Family secret.
But there's a whole bunch of other stories in the family that I was really hoping there'd be some real juicy, gory details in there, because I know, for one thing, like my grandfather went to jail. Back when he was in his 20s, he had a family of he had 10 kids, and somewhere along the way they were dirt poor, which is in this report. But he went to jail at some point because he passed some bad checks, like just to pay rent or pay for something, and they caught up with him, and he went to jail. I don't know how many times he did it, but this is how my relatives have responded to family stories. I had one aunt who died a few years back. She had written a book. She was like the oldest daughter. She had written a book. She had a manuscript. And when she died, they found a manuscript in all of her belongings. And she had chronicled all the things that had happened, like my grandmother's nervous breakdowns, the jail time, when my grandfather went away and served in the forestry division. They burned the manuscript because they didn't want anybody to know. They said they called her crazy, and they said it was all, but I think she might have actually had a really good ancestry report, and now it's burned. And she did it on a typewriter, so there was no file, there's no document to recover. It's just gone. So until someone like you comes along and is willing and knows how to look through those history records, I have no. So my son came to me today. He didn't even know we were talking to you today. Some friend of his is doing a genealogy report. It's, 14-year-old research, and. He's like, Mom, are we related to people in Stephenville? And I was like, well, let me check. Let me check. And so we very well may. We just, the path we went down doesn't cover those people. But I would, in a heartbeat, pay for more time to find out, because now I'm very curious.
It's super. It's like getting a cliffhanger at the end of a TV show season. It's like, what's going to happen next? But
it's like, what are they covering up? Like, I thought, I'm hoping that there'll be stuff in my family report that has, like, there was musicians, or there was mental illness, or things that kind of like, yeah, that makes sense, or people who were artistic or had certain things that they were interested in, like, or names that were passed down that I didn't know where the names came from. I'm named after my grandmother, who was named after whoever, and I saw all these names and going, I've heard those names over the years, and it was the first time I actually went, oh, that was my great grandmother's name, or that was my. I didn't know there was. Anyway, it was fascinating. So tell us about this report. Tell us what you found out about the Hanlon family.
Well, your dad was an unusual dead end. That's unusual. I guess it's somewhat unusual that there's a immediate parent that's a dead end, but he's alive, right? And so when you're alive, when you're alive, I'm limited, right? Like here in the States, they do census every 10 years, but they only release them 70 years after they're done. Right. Oh. So the most recent census I can get here is 1950. So my dad, who's 75, was 2, right? Or whatever the math is. Okay. And so there's just not a lot of public information that's out there, especially when it comes to military stuff. They kind of hold that for a really long time. Wow. So it's not unusual for living people to be dead ends, but he was a flat out dead end. Like, there was nothing to tell me who his parents were, that's unusual. The other side of the family, let's see, it's William Hanlon. Am I saying that correctly?
I will tell you that my dad's family, the legend with my dad's family is that they were pirates. And there was a curse on the family, and it goes way, way back. And I think they were English and Irish, and they did some bad stuff to a nun, a sister of the cloth, and she put a curse on the family, and the name changed a few times to not rewrite it. What do you say? Cover up their tracks. So the Linegar family became kind of.
That might have something to do with it.
Yeah, there might be a. I don't think they have the technology to erase their past or anything, but they would also be very secretive about. Except for they claim that we're related to Dean Stockwell from Quantum Leap. So they were very proud of that, but otherwise
Gotcha.
they don't exist. I have relatives in this generation that wanted to change their name so that they wouldn't be they wouldn't be associated with the Lineker name. So that doesn't surprise me that it's a dead end. And they would be the people who wouldn't answer the door if the census taker was going around.
So I do run into my own family people who don't want to tell me things. My paternal grandmother, I was asking her questions about people that if I remember correctly, I thought somebody had gotten divorced and remarried. To me, that was a pretty
shame.
Right. I thought that was a pretty easy question to ask, right? And got nothing. That we don't talk about those things.
Amazing.
Now, she was
amazing.
She was very helpful to me in that she gave me a whole trunk full of things, right? I mean, she knew what I was doing and said, here's a trunk full of things that was invaluable. Letters that her father had during World War I, things that I would never find anywhere else. So, I mean, she was very helpful, but I mean, there was a line.
There's a line.
That Catholic lady was not going to tell me or confirm that this person had divorced. It just seems, on the flip side, I've had people argue that what they think is right. And I learned early on, I'm not going to argue, right? I mean, you can think whatever you want to.
This is what you found.
Yeah, I'm not. You can't prove that. I know you can't prove it, and you really believe it, and so we're just gonna. I'm not going to talk.
What would you say is your accuracy level? Like, when you go back, what are the chances that somebody a couple with two separate names from two different families, what are the chances that there's a whole other root in the family tree or a whole other family unrelated to each other that have, what's the accuracy, would you say?
I mean, I think in my own family, if you go back far enough, my family has lived either in Stewart County, Tennessee, or Union County, Kentucky, since the early 1800s, and I call it compound interest, right? I mean, you go back far enough, those people have thousands of descendants, right? And so to expect people to live in the same geographic location for 200 years and not have it cross every once in a while is, I think it would be weird if it didn't cross every once in a while. So I think that happens probably more often than we like to think. But I mean, we're not, it happens, I guess. So,
like, in Newfoundland right now, we're probably at the peak, biggest population we've probably ever had. I think it's a little over 500,000 people. So the chances of not marrying your cousin is pretty slim. So I went outside Newfoundland. I found Josh from North Carolina. I don't think we're related, but
probably not.
I mean, hopefully it's distant, because I would still have married him, even if he was, third or fourth, maybe. But it seems like such a small population, like somewhere along the line we're all related. And it's happening more and more with the kids that they'll meet a new friend. This happened just this past week. These kids had all intersected. They met at a park one time and exchanged MSN or messenger codes or whatever. And they were having a little get together, and we friended each other. The parents friended each other on Facebook. And then I hear my son talking on the phone on a call, and he goes, "What do you mean?" And he mentioned the name of this lady, like, "Oh, I grew up with her. We've spent years hanging out, going to bingo, playing music together and partying and all this stuff." She was older than me. It was this kid's grandmother. I had been hearing stories for my entire life about this lady and her daughter. Turns out she had a daughter about the same age as me, and now our children have met in St. John's through another kid. It wasn't even a connection, like it wasn't even in the same neighborhood or in the same town. But it was like, wait, what? So we spent hours going, and this person, we know all the same people. Let's just cut to the chase. We know all the same people.
Related.
It turns out we are. Because she was hanging around at my aunt's house because she was related to my aunt's husband, so we're related by marriage. And so this kid that is just come into Peter's life, sorry, buddy, is your distant cousin. Not sorry, but it was like
pretty cool. Yeah.
But it's not the first time that's happened. That it's like that link, and it's like totally random, but not really, because it's only 500,000 people. So what are the chances that we wouldn't all be related? Anyway, so sorry, you started at William Hanlon, and now you're
yeah, so William Hanlon was kind of a dead end, and again, I say dead ends, but in when I at the very beginning of your report, you get a family tree, right? In the paper one you get, it's going to be separate on harder paper, so you can
Yep.
pull it out and follow along. Because I find people have trouble flipping back and forth to figure out who
Okay.
they're looking at. So it's a separate piece of paper, but you'll see that it's Ancestry is suggesting to me who his parents are. Right, you will
Yep.
see like light green, and his parents might be I can't read it. Aslam Hanlon and Bridget Power or something.
Yep.
Right. So Ancestry is telling me, hey, other people who research this person believe these are his parents. Right. And so, but I don't take anybody's word for it, because that's a problem, right? Somebody saying this is what they believe on Ancestry.com is one of the problems I have with Ancestry.com, is that it becomes this echo chamber, right? And you learn over time. So Ancestry will say, hey, Blayne, you're researching this William guy. Here's 5 people who think his parents are these people, right?
Yep.
And if you're new, you'll just say, that's great. 5
Sure.
people think it, so it must be right. Let me add all that here. But if you do this long enough, you realize those 5 people are just referencing each other, and it's not really 5 people, right? It's just one person's opinion that's gotten picked up and echoes. And so I don't take their word for it, but I keep it in the report for you guys, because it might mean something to you that I don't know, right? And so
is it like Wikipedia, where can people put in information?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Ancestry is kind of like, in my head, it's 3 different things. One, it's a way to organize your data, and it's very good at that. I like the way that it's organized. It's intuitive. You can create trees, and the way it tells the information is really nice. The second thing it does is it's got a lot of searchable public information.
Okay.
Censuses, city directories. They're starting to put yearbooks in there, which is great. I mean,
Wow.
people want to
That's
see
cool.
Yeah.
their grandfather's yearbook photo. Although
Yep.
I did find one a few months ago where this client's grandfather was in a yearbook. They had done a play, and everybody's in blackface.
Oh wow.
Right. And I was like, oh, that was in their yearbook. I just put it in there and left it alone. Didn't say anything. Like, it is what it is.
Pass it
So
along.
the second part is it's really good about searching, right? You can, instead of this guy who would go door to door or pull out the 19 census and just go page by page trying to read the handwriting, we can now just search it and it pops right up. So it's super fast.
Yep.
The third thing it does is it crowdsources information. So if I have a picture of my great grandfather and I post it to a public tree, it's going to alert other people who have my great grandfather in their tree of Blayne just posted this picture. And so they can
Oh,
go out and
wow.
grab it. Right. And so that's great if I'm giving good data out to the, to the environment. But if I am giving bad data out to the environment, then it just gets cycled around and can turn it. A new person can. I messed up. And people, when I first started, I worked with 2 ladies who did Ancestry, and one of them said, don't ever use Ancestry.com. The other one was like, it's fine. You just have to be disciplined in your approach and what you accept and how you filter information. And so I started using it and I did not use it appropriately, right? I'm getting a click happy. Oh, this is great. This is great. This is great. And then you realize, wait a minute, I've created whole tree here and I can't figure out what I've clicked on that's sourcing, right? I've got unsourced information, which is a complete problem.
Yep.
And so I did what most amateur genealogists do. You start over, right? And you hate to do it because you've got this tree with 5,000 people in it, but you know that 4,000 of them are, I don't know what they are, why they're there.
Is there a way to flag stuff if you've come across it and said, no, I know this actually isn't true? Like, is there a way to see how many people have flagged it or called it,
That is hard to do. I think one of the first things I remember that made me think, oh, this is a problem. I had an aunt, a great aunt who had recently died, but she did genealogy, and she would send me these wonderful manila envelopes out of nowhere, right? And you'd open them up, and they're chock full of stuff, right? But she had handwritten things. And to me, that was useful because at least she's in the same area that I'm in, right? She at least has come to the same conclusions. And so I would post those. I would add those to people in my tree, right? Because I found that information valuable. But my tree was public, and other people would see her work, and they would tag themselves. They would say, oh, this is great. I'm going to tag it. And then like 2 months later, I got a leaf, right? And whenever there's a hint, a little leaf pops up, and I clicked on it, and it was my piece of paper. But when you click to see who posted it, it was not me. It was somebody else. And I think that's when I realized, wait a minute, these sources are just floating around. You have to have a disciplined approach, or else you're going to get caught up in the noise and ultimately participate in the noise and make the tool worse. And Ancestry is great because they give you a 30-day trial, and that's how they hook you in.
Yeah. They
got my free 30 days, 13, 15 years ago. Been paying for it ever since. But the problem is people do. I shared a meme the other day. It's of Willy Wonka, and he's like, "Oh, that's cute. You got through your family tree in 30 days. Tell me about that, right?" And they can't. It's impossible, right? And so people get on there and they just click. They create more noise in their 30 days, and they jump off and never come back.
Right.
And so you just can't filter. You have to filter it as it comes, right? Like, is this thing I'm about to add to my tree, is it legit? Can I verify it somehow? And that takes time, and it takes time to learn the tools to know to not click on something, to know to not add something, or that Ancestry will tell you that this census, every census they ask different questions. In Canada, you guys ask very different questions than we ask in our census. I mean, we would not ask, in history before current times, we wouldn't ask what your religion is, which you guys did every census I saw up there.
I can't wait to get to that question. I can't wait to tell someone.
They only stopped doing religious-based schools, 20 years ago, 25 years ago?
Well,
I remember you guys talking about this on your podcast, I think, that there was...
like you went to a Catholic school or a Protestant school. Yeah.
And there was sometimes schools right across the road from each other, or like you could live across the road from a kid that was going to a different school, and there'd be two different buses passing each other in the morning to take one to Anglican and one to a Protestant or one to a Catholic, and it was wild. There was a girl that grew up down the street from me, and I didn't meet her till we were in our 30s in college, and she lived 5 houses away from me. So that's a little strange.
Like a different world.
Yeah. Is definitely, but it was a big thing. The book we're publishing right now for a gentleman from Ireland who spent a lot of time in Newfoundland, and his stuff was very religion based. Also, his experience when he came here was,
but I guess that makes sense
heavily religious.
If the government's going to be asking different questions, based on what government you're looking into,
they were so married to each other. So like the schools were run by churches, but the government essentially was the ones. The church didn't pay for school or books or teachers. The government ran it. Yeah. Were in charge of it. They paid all the bills, but the church ran it. So it was very much. This is a dark. This is a big smudge on our history in Canada. But there are thousands and thousands of Indigenous children who just disappeared. They just were taken from their families. They were sent off to schools to be made into, religious. They were put into. I would imagine it's Catholic. I'm not really sure, but they just disappeared, and there's no record of them. So that was and that's not just in Newfoundland. That's across Canada. So that might be one of the reasons that genealogy and ancestry might be hard to track, because we're in the process. Canada right now officially is in the process of covering up their dirty secret, and there are literally thousands. They found mass graves of thousands of children under different residential schools that are they just don't exist. And so there's these families who are also Canadian who have no record of where their children went. And there's, family history. My God, there's no way to. So we're in the process. We also don't keep a sex offender registry.
That's a whole different.
Canada's a great place, but it's a very private place. So you can do real bad things and live right next door to whoever you want. There's no right. You can't go research. You can look through court documents, sometimes who's on the docket, but you cannot go back through and see who's been charged with what. There's no such thing.
This brings up a good point, because to do a good job, you have to know the history of the place you're looking at, right? And that is hard sometimes for me when I don't know. Pardon me. When I was looking at your stuff, I had a map of your Newfoundland open the whole time.
Yep.
Because there were people from your family. You're on St. John's, right? So that was the eastern side of something. But if you went up and around the peninsula, there was a bay or a cove, or what was the name of it? It was
Portugal Cove.
A good name. What did you say?
Portugal Cove in St. Phillips.
That's it. Yeah. And so I was constantly looking at maps. I do use Wikipedia, not to cite, but just to have a quick understanding of what is that, how long have they been there, why did they get there. But I think you're talking about the Indigenous people that disappeared. I'm from the Southeast United States, and in with the 1830s or 40s had the Indian Removal Act, where we made them walk, right, from thousands of miles, I would assume,
Yeah.
from wherever to Oklahoma, and it came through where I live. And what is a common folklore with ancestry in the Southeast, anyway, is that inevitably there's when you do genealogy, there's a point in the states. I'm just going to keep saying the states. In the states, the 1840 census doesn't ask about other people. It wants to know what's the white man in your house, and who else is in there by classification, right? Do you have any free white ladies between the age of 15 to 14? You just write 2, So coming backwards, the females drop off the paper record, right? You don't know who they are. You just know the man of the house. And so females often drop off before 1840, which is when the Indian Removal Act happened, right? And so after 1840, you have women who just show up, not just show up, but on paper, they weren't there before. They were just a mark or non-existent. And then in 1850, they show up. And so you have this lore, and I've talked to a local park manager who's somewhat of an expert in this stuff. And you have this lore. I have it in my family. Kim has it in her family, that there's Native American blood, right? We are related to Cherokees in some way, fashion, or form. And it always, it's infamously back to the lady who just shows up on the 1850 census, right? And it's her. She's a natural dead end.
Yep.
My particular story is this particular lady. She was, her parents were tribal leaders that died, and that the tribe just left her with the whites, for lack of a better term, the white people in the town of which when her parents died, and that she was adopted, and that's that's problematic to me, and that I can't imagine a tribe having their leader's parents die, right, and then they just leave the kid with the culture, which is making them exodus their homeland. That doesn't make sense to me.
That doesn't track. Not at all.
It doesn't track. It doesn't. It's convenient. It is what I think is happening is this is a redemption story, right? People want to. I think people feel bad that happened, right? There's some remorse. I feel terrible that is something that happened, right? And
I just heard the ghosts of your ancestors going, it wasn't convenient. It was actually really hard to cover that up.
Really
that's right.
It was really hard, actually.
If you're telling the story, it's very easy to tell that story, to say that it was it's always a male, right? Comes in and saves this poor non-white female and adopts them because that's the right thing to do. And it is something that doesn't really exist out west. It does with maybe people of Mexican heritage or Native American heritage out there. It seems to be something that's located in the Southeast, that there is this. I think people are trying in some way to recognize that was a horrible thing, and perhaps my family was one of the people who were not part of the horrible thing, right? Which I think is probably unlikely given what was happening. But this idea that Indigenous people, right, that they fall off, they disappear, only to be resurrected in the framing of,
So it's kind of funny, in 2025, we're having this conversation where, like, shouldn't this, at some point you would think it would become public record and we could just find out the truth and maybe stop making the same mistakes. But it's like, we can't open any files between 1980 and 97.
I think having somebody like Blayne, or like people that see this as a hobby and a fun way to, spend your time, like, if you're getting better and better at finding these things and opening up what actually happened, and
and people want to know
facts and photos and all, like, it's crazy.
People want to know.
I think telling the story is there's a level of tact, right? There's a level of I want to respect where you're coming from, and I want to respect what you really, really deeply believe is true, right? But I also want to show you what I think is true, right? And having that conversation, whether it's with a family member or a client, I have to make sure that tell the story accurately and communicate what needs to be communicated without people digging their heels in, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's I think perhaps, in my day job, when I'm telling management something bad happened, right, and I had to be involved and looked at it, you have to be able to communicate that in a way that is valued, that is accepted, so that they can then do what they need to do to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
I think trying to, and I bounce these things off of other people. I've mentioned my friend David. It's David Britton. He's a park manager here. I bounce things off of him, like, hey, I am wording it this way. Does that sound acceptable? Does that sound okay? Having conversations with people, and I've had people say, well, I think I have this kind of ancestry heritage, but my DNA didn't say that. So Blayne, can you look into that? And I'm like, well, I'm not going to beat science, right? I'm just looking at paper. But also recognizing that just because your DNA doesn't say it, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not there, right? If you go back to 3 generations, I mean, I think if you go back to my 3rd or 4th great grandmother, I've got like 100 of those. You know what I mean? There's a lot of volume there, and if one of those was Cherokee, I'm not sure that DNA is going to pick up on that infinitesimal piece. So trying to explain all of these things in a compassionate but yet realistic manner can be hard sometimes, but
we have a legend in Newfoundland in all the history books. When I was, going through high school, there was the Shannon was the last of the Beothuk. It was a big whole thing. I think there might have been a little monument put up for her, but she was the last of the Beothuk, the last Indigenous person in the province. Now, we have Labrador, which is full of Indigenous people. We don't know where they came from, obviously. But what turns out, something that's going on in Newfoundland right now is we have all these Indigenous people who they can very clearly trace back their lineage, and it's just like their grandfather or their uncle or very, very close relatives, but they're not being given Indigenous rights. And so the government is like, because if you're Indigenous in Canada, there's free schooling and there's some other benefits. I guess as reparations, I don't know, maybe they signed a treaty back in the day. They promised to do this back in the day, but what's happening now is that people are being denied their Indigenous heritage, and so they don't get any of the, so they're, it's a tragic thing that's going on, but there's these massive court cases going on right now where there's thousands and thousands of people with Indigenous heritage here in Newfoundland that it's probably happened across Canada. I just have friends who are going through the court cases right now and they can say, like, my grandfather, my uncle came from this tribe or came from this group, and they don't have what, a card. They don't have the card saying 100% it's gross. It's really, really gross. And so that's, people don't really know that stuff about Canada. So here I'm here to I'm here to put some smudges on Canada's heritage, because it's not great. There's a lot of great stuff about Canada, but it's not all great. There's a whole lot of stuff going on that the government is not, it's not perfect. It's beyond,
So it's important to be able to see that's part of history. Absolutely.
So I do want to go back to something, Blayne, about you said the initial round of telling people that you were doing family research or ancestry genealogy reports. You said you had kind of drained the pool. Like, I don't know how you worded it. I was going to say drain the pool. I would imagine that usually in marketing, people need to hear things. This sounds so cringy, but 10 or 12 times before it actually gets in. And so my suggestion to you would be to find some folks like us who have benefited from the information you found for us and have testimonials. Because the other thing, I think the real selling point for you is that you're trustworthy and you're wonderful. And when you're letting people get to know you, people are more inclined to buy from you. Because they get to know you, and it's not a salesman. There's no flags, you don't have that ticker tape flying behind you, like a used car sales guy. But it's letting people get to know you so that they're they're authentically getting to know you. they're more inclined to trust you. And why, of course, they would call you and say, can I trust you with my family history and will you do a good job? So I think that would be my suggestion, would be to keep plugging away. And the family that has already bought from you would probably buy more from you too, because they trust you now. And it only takes one good person saying a positive thing. For other, word of mouth is so much more valuable than any boosted post or any advertising campaign or anything else. It really is. It's a delicate subject for some people, and some of them might be just fun, but it's a very delicate thing. And I think making sure you let people know, and this is how we know what you do. This is like you've been letting us know, and it's like, yeah, that makes total sense. Blayne is a person I would absolutely trust. I mean, I dropped my kids off at your house, no problem, and we met once 12 years ago, but I feel like we know each other. And it was like, yeah, no, I know these are decent people. I know, I've seen how they react to things in life. And I think we're on the same page. I 100% across the board. I'm afraid to find out, maybe we
go too deep.
Maybe you're like ultra vegan or something. That'd be scary because I love meat.
I was going to say, you've seen I smoke a lot of meat. Maybe a guy from the South and not smoke some pig.
I think it does build a lot of trust to let people know. And I know you've been doing a lot more social media. And of course, people can find you on, so it's Blayne's Family Research, BLAYNES Family Research. You're on Instagram. And where are you on other platforms?
Facebook.
I'm on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay.
A lot of what I've gotten from your podcast, I have gotten, I think you've said, when you're ready to hear it, you hear it, right? Or something.
When you're ready for it, it shows up. Yep.
Yeah, that happens a lot. You will say, like you've just said, if people see my face, they're more likely to, right? That's what Fiverr says. Fiverr says put a video out. And, so I've got the YouTube channel like reserved, but my problem is finding the time to do that right and to do it consistently. I think it was last week. I know podcasts are the timing's off, but in a previous episode where you had the dental hygienist on, which was a great episode, by the way. I like that a lot.
She's awesome.
You met her for LinkedIn, right? And I was like, I'm not on LinkedIn. You dropped that on a Wednesday. I listened to it on a Thursday. I had lunch with a friend on Friday who said, why are you not on LinkedIn? Right? And I was like, well,
amazing.
Because I think that's for people looking for jobs. And she was like, hello, you're looking for jobs.
You're hiring.
On LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And her thing was, I'm not on Facebook, I'm not on Instagram. So the only way I can really elevate your post is if you're where I'm at. And so then it's like, okay, well, I need to be on LinkedIn. I need to do videos.
And not a professional resume, but just for this thing. Because if I want somebody to edit my book or somebody to help me with what's the distribution of a song, there are people on Fiverr who you can pay a couple $100, and apparently they'll distribute a song to all these stations across the world. And that's just... Normally, that costs thousands of dollars. So the Fiverr is like probably not going to be a great. They're probably just going to harass people. It's not the way to go. But on LinkedIn, I find as a rule of thumb, I've been on LinkedIn for years. I've gotten nothing from it. But when I took the approach, I want to put things on that I want to resume doing. RESUME. Like if we stop saying resume and pronounce it wrong, what do you want to resume doing? And it's, well, I've been doing this. And I want to keep doing it. And it's people will find you with the hashtags. Like, I'm sure if you use ChatGPT will feed you a whole bunch of hashtags to put on there. So if someone goes onto LinkedIn and says, I wonder if there's a genealogist that I can... And then you have these endorsements and these connections. And people have said, I trust Blayne with my research and I found out this. I mean, that's huge.
You also made a comment, maybe it was the episode I'm listening to now, about how you would in the past have people on the radio show your podcast or whatever, and there was a lack of reciprocation of the visibility that I am staggered that I only have maybe 2 reviews. I mean, people just don't do that. And it's they tell me they're happy, they email me they're happy, they talk about how their dad loved the report at Christmas or how their brother got a copy and liked it. And I'm like, great, can you do me a solid with a Facebook review or something? And just never, I don't, those things are important.
We'll have to do an episode on that because I'm not 100% sure how to get that, how that translates. Like how to get people to request our songs on the radio station. Now they let me know when they hear it, but they don't request it. And it actually takes a phone number or an email to the radio station to request our songs. It costs nothing. It takes a few seconds. So educate people. And I keep going back to that. Like Josh said something on this past episode. Like maybe people didn't know. Like, did you ask? Like, well, no. And it was a couple people shared it. We had Eamon McGraw shared the stuff everywhere on all of his platforms. And it was like, have I ever asked anybody? Like, well, I wouldn't want to put somebody in that position, much like I wouldn't want to charge somebody money for what I'm doing. Like, this is the problem.
I wonder if
did you ask? For me, it is.
I wonder if there's something like you said you give people the paper copy and then they pay a little bit extra and they get their files. Maybe like leave me a review and I'll give you the files. Like I wonder,
that's good.
You know what I mean?
Or a discount on further hours.
Yeah.
If they leave a good review. Like it seems kind of scummy to say, leave me a good, but like you're not asking them to lie. You're saying, if you liked what I did, please tell someone else.
You're telling me, tell everybody else.
Yeah. It does help. Word of mouth. Nicole Kiley's marketing company is called, she's a dental hygienist, so it's super cute, but it's word of mouth marketing. And it really, I love that story. I cleaned up my profile on LinkedIn. I had all my documentaries and all my film work and all these other things. I took it all off. I had a story on there about how I worked for a company that fired me, and I put a big scandalous, and they sent me a cease and desist letter and told me to take it down, but they didn't see TikTok, so it's still on TikTok. But I just cleaned up my LinkedIn. I put on only what I want to continue doing, and it's not a platform really for podcasts, but it worked. And I'm also on Pinterest and Etsy and TikTok. There's a few other platforms, and some of it really takes. And I can't believe I met somebody on LinkedIn that... It just blows my mind. Yeah. And then I was on Instagram, and Hannah Slay posted a video. She posted a picture. I'm moving to Substack. I'm going to try my writing. I'm going to try this new platform. But she said in the post, well, you'd have to go download the app to follow me. And I was like, well, I like her. I love her. I think she's very funny. I actually, as a 47-year-old human, went and downloaded a new app, signed up for it, found her, and I was her first subscriber. It was amazing. And then she followed me. And then she followed me on Instagram. And I jumped around every time I see her name in my notifications. I jump around because I love her. But it was really organic in that, like, you did ask people to follow you on Substack. Of course they followed. Like, but it's really sometimes asking. That's the whole sales, that method of sales is, did you ask for the sale? Michael Scott on The Office is ask for the sale. And ask for the review, because it does serve. And maybe somebody needs that explanation of, like, if you put a good review on, it will expand. And just maybe through this podcast, maybe we cut a clip out of this. So let's do that. Let's do a clip right now. So we're here today with Blayne Clements from Blayne's Family Research. And Blayne, of course, is a wonderful genealogist who has done a family history report for me. And I mean, what I've learned is absolutely fascinating, and I can't wait to learn more. It just whetted my appetite, and I'm so excited that he was able to find this information. So Blayne, how could I, as a client, help you? Like, what would help you and your small business and this side hustle, as you call it? But this is so important at what you're doing. How could we help you?
I think online social media reviews is the most visible way to communicate to people who might employ me that I do a good job, that the product is good. It's not just me selling something, but there's other people who can attest that it's a quality product. And it's those online reviews are they're short. It doesn't take much time, but they really have a lot of weight and help other people decide if they're going to support us or not.
Does this make you, when you go and look for a service, do you trust the online reviews? Is this something that you listen to yourself or look for?
For sure. If I'm buying something online, one of the filters is got to be 4 stars or over, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's just what we do, right? And if I've got one review that's 4 stars, then if I'm on Amazon or something of that nature, people are filtering me out right away, not because I'm not because I'm doing it bad, just because I don't have the volume. I think that's my issue with Fiverr. Honestly, I haven't got any business that way. And so if you're there looking on me and they click on me all the time, but nobody ever procures me because there's other people who have more stars or they're a better level.
Yep.
And just getting to there is a challenge. It's not easy to share my product, right? Yeah. I'm not going to go send somebody your report and say, hey, look what I did. Look what I did for Vickie. Right, that's your private information.
Right,
so,
it's kind of hard to demonstrate
like
that.
A real.
So I went through and like redacted, right, and said just took all the names out, and then you post that, and well, that looks pretty crappy. I mean, there's no names, right? I mean, it just doesn't look right. There's no pictures. There's no news articles. There's the stuff that makes it interesting goes away, and so trying to demonstrate to somebody that's why reviews are important because it helps get that out there without me. worried about compromising somebody's personal information.
I have a cousin that just started a new business, and she does organization for people who, when someone gets a depression nest, where their house is just clutter everywhere and they, just can't face it. She goes in and organizes their whole one room at a time or their whole house. And it was very, very difficult to figure out how to market for her because she doesn't do before and after photos. There's no way to say what she does. And you can't show somebody's mess, and you can't really show, like, it's not the before, the after picture is not really that nobody's going to see themselves in that after picture. So it's like when you keep stuff private, the results are private. It's very hard. It's a challenge to, outside of going on a podcast, creating videos where you're actually sharing who you are and why you care about what you're doing, or reviews from customers. It's a big thing. So I have two things that I want to say. When I buy something now on Amazon, sometimes it'll be 3 weeks later. It could be a very long time after where I'll get an email saying, could you please leave a review? So I don't think it matters how long after, but sending a link to someone via email, which is probably how you've been in touch with them, or a text. But I think it's okay to follow up and say...
That's twofold, too, because not only are you saying, hey, just want to check in, would you mind leaving a review if you like the service? Yep. It's also like, oh, yeah, Blayne's doing that family research thing. I could get another, I could buy that for somebody, or I could do more time, or like it's just like a billboard, like a reminder of like,
The people most likely to buy from you again are the people who've already bought from you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm very good. My brain thinks this way, right? I'm an accountant and finance major. I audit and do fraud investigations, right? So my brain likes to find data and figure out what the story is, and my brain does not pay attention to the time when I'm doing this, which to me is valuable, right? It's my wife crochets or knits. I'm going to get that backwards, but she does one of those. But it's something I can do, right? It's something I can do. It's low impact. I lose track of time. I learn about history, which is fun. I mean, I lose track of time. That tells me it's beneficial to me in a number of ways. And I like learning, right? I've got to, my great-grandfather was in the Navy, 1907 and 1911. And he was on this voyage called the Great White Fleet, 16 battleships painted bright white. And they went all the way around the world. Teddy Roosevelt's floating big stick is what they called it. And it's a fascinating story, and in my family has given me things. I've said my grandmother gave me a chest, my other grandmother gave me books, and once you start doing this, then family just starts giving you things, right? Because you're the person that can take care of them.
The record keeper.
And so I have 300 postcards that he got, over 300, while he was on this world tour, right? All over the place. And so I've decided that story needs to be told, right? I've had some prodding by peers and mentors in town who have said, you can't just hold on to these postcards. You got to tell this story, right? You've got to. And so that's led me to read, of all things, naval history, right? From the Civil War to World War I, which I thought would be boring, but it's actually pretty nice. But this has led me to learn more about that, better understand my environment, my history, better understand his story and what he came through, and write a book. I never thought I would do that. I wrote an article for a local history, our local county museum. I did a project years ago, and they asked me to write an article about it, and so I did. And then they said, well, do you want to be on our TV program? And I was like, 100%. And my goal is to get I want more publicity for the project I was working on. But however, it's also publicity for me, right? Because it's the people who are interested in local history of which I'm talking about are the ones who are likely going to watch this TV show. Yep. So that's good. But I do like reading history. And I think this personalizes it, right?
Yep.
That we can talk about the Indian Removal Act, but let's talk about my third great grandmother, right? And how that works with that is a different context that I think makes it more real, right? When we can share with a client that I can get you back to 1820s, and here's some pictures that I think might be them, right? And those pictures, it's funny how many pictures I find where there is no doubt they are related to my client. They look there is, I mean, there is no doubt. Even one guy, I said, I don't know if this is your great grandpa or not. And he said it is. And I was like, how do you know that? And he was like, the way he's standing. We all stand like that. Right. And my wife has said, well, all the Clementses, my dad's side, we all stand the same way in photos. And she's 100% right. I don't think I ever, you don't think about those things. But if you were to line up pictures of my family, we're all standing the exact same way. You know?
Yeah. We recognize your brother right away when you post pictures of him. There's no question that he's your brother.
When I visit him, I drive his truck, and people down in Lower Alabama wave at me. Right? They just assume I'm him. Right? It's we look a lot alike.
So this is a couple of sparks that came up just now while you were talking, Blayne. I'm wondering about, because you said you like writing articles, you said an opportunity to be on TV, to promote the thing the material. So you're not a person who just wants to be on TV. I can tell you're not a camera hog. You're a little reserved and shy. But it seems like when you have a story to tell, you're happy to deliver it. So my suggestion for your YouTube channel would be, so you have some clients who are going to want to keep things private, but maybe there's an opportunity to interview people or deliver the results to people who agree to be on your YouTube channel, who are okay. And you could, pre-screen and tell them this is what I kind of found out. But maybe that's a good way to advertise and have promo clips and stuff of what you do by sharing the people who are, and with a disclaimer, these were people who agreed to it, and you don't have to agree to it. But that you could tell people their stories and deliver them, because there are huge TV shows of psychics who talk to people's dead relatives with no basis. It was a J name. Do you have a J name? Right? So this is actual, real scientific, basic, real facts that you're delivering. So I think that would be my suggestion. I would want to watch, I would want to see you host and talk to people who you've just found out, from all over the world.
There's people that there are shows with celebrities that do that. So having it like a real
real
person,
people.
You know what I mean? That'd be fantastic.
Yeah. I started maybe 2 weeks ago posting pictures that I found for clients.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that it's an uptick, right? But in my world, it's tiny. But it's an uptick that people.
You just posted one the other day that was a homestead in Norway.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Awesome. That was
really
cool.
Absolutely love it.
That's the same house where somebody had said, they posted the musical instruments. I can't remember if I posted that one yet, but the same person said, here's their house in Norway, and inside, and there's a fiddle and a piano and
no way,
all this stuff, and it's not always just pictures of people that people are interested in.
Oh my God,
right?
I'd love to see that.
Those types of things are great. But I have found that if I post pictures and tell how I ended up at that picture, why that picture is significant, if I tell their story a little bit.
The story in there, yeah.
I think you're spot on with YouTube. If I could tell stories.
Yes,
what I found.
Because it's a visual medium. Yeah. And the other thing, my other suggestion would be too, and I have two things before I want to make sure I don't forget them. Wait now.
It's already gone.
It's already gone. Hold on. Shit. The first one was, the Ken Burns effect. So Ken Burns invented this method of doing documentaries where he'll show a still picture and he'll pan across it for 45 seconds and do a voiceover of during the Civil War, blah, blah, blah. And it's a moving video. So it's not a still picture, which that can kind of get lost in an Instagram feed. But a moving video, if it's still considered a video, if it's moving across the picture or zeroing in on a person that you're talking about or zooming out, you can do a voiceover with that. And that's it's more engaging. Any kind of moving marketing is better than a stagnant picture. So that would be another suggestion too. You can do music behind it. You can do a voiceover of, you have a great voice.
That homestead in Norway that you having where you zooming out from the house and seeing the mountains in the background, the fjords or whatever. That'd be amazing.
And that's an easy edit. That's most of the apps will do that. And I would leave the one that you have there, but redo it where you're panning across or zooming in and read what you wrote in the description.
That's fantastic.
And you can put the text also in the description, but that goes to TikTok, that goes to Instagram, that goes on YouTube Reels, and then that links back to your YouTube channel. So I love this. I love how excited you are about all this stuff, because it's I just dig into this, and there's a reason for us to move to Tennessee. I keep saying it.
That's right. Yeah.
If we lived closer, we'd be we could do all this stuff. We could do a lot of this stuff remotely as well. The book. I wanted to talk to you about the book because you mentioned on the top there that you have a book idea that you want to. Is that from the postcards?
Yeah. So when I got the I have my archives is over 900 things, right? And there's a lot of stuff that I've not went through. And over Christmas I went through and pulled out a box and I was going to go through it, and it was just a boatload of postcards that I'd given my mother, and I just said, "Can you organize them?" And she organized them by country. And when I saw them organized by country, that's when I realized, wait a minute, he got these on this journey, and so I archived them. I don't know I didn't know what I was doing in the beginning, so I went to the Library of Congress and they said, hey, this is how you archive stuff. I later learned there's a much simpler, less expensive way to do than I was doing it, but that's the road I'm going down. And so I took them all, I took care of them. I took them to a local historian and said, hey, this is what I've got. I don't know anything. This is what I think I have. And she said, she brought in other people, and we were all looking at them and, talking about Antiques Roadshow. You got to take this stuff to Antiques Roadshow. But as I was leaving, she pulled me aside and said, hey, you've got to tell this guy's story. I mean, he's your great grandfather. Wow. He's on this historic voyage. You've got postcards from all over the world. There's no way you can't somehow learn more about this and tell this story. So I started I started watching YouTube videos about it, and the YouTube videos were showing pictures of postcards. And I'm like, oh, I've got that one. And then I started reading books. I think there's only 5 books written on the subject. I've read 4. I can't find the 5th one for sale. And so as I was reading, I was just making notes, right? And so since like the voyage went here, then it went here, then it went here. That's kind of how the books went. So I was like, oh, they went to Peru, and this is the story there. Or they went to Brazil, and this is the story at that port. And then another book would tell different stories, right? And so it just kind of grew to and I'm at the stage. I'm at the stage now where I'm now dropping in postcards from his collection to help enhance that story. And that's awesome. It's coming around pretty good. I thought I was about done, and then I got his Navy records in the mail, which was just unusual. I usually ask for those things and can't get them. There was fires and archives, right? They just burn up; they're not there. But they said, "No, we've got something," and they sent me his naval records, and that took my story from left field to right field. Once I got to see his Navy records, I had a completely different perspective on his journey and his experience, and so that took a while to digest. And how am I going to tell that part of the story and still have still be accurate and not make everybody mad with what happened, right? And so that takes a while to think about it. And
that's the creative process. That's it.
Yeah, and I'm lucky. I think I'm about done, but I've said that once a month for 6 months, right? So I think I'm about done. And
I love it.
Being at a university, I've got a whole entire history department, right? That I know some, right? And so I'm like, hey, will you read this when I'm done and tell me what's going on? I've talked to people on campus like, hey, I've never cited anything before in my life. How do I do that? I'd accounting major. He didn't cite something. He just added it together, right?
You wouldn't have written long, boring story like reports on research papers and all that. I guess not.
If I did, I didn't get good grades, and I don't remember how that works. So I've had to ask people like, how do you cite things? And then I read where if citations break up your narrative, and so they don't want citations in there because the reader gets bored with seeing these constant parenthetical things. Yeah. So I'm learning a whole lot.
Right.
You said the other day that in Canada, ISBN numbers are free.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah, we've got 85 more if you need. I'll give you a dozen. That's no sweat.
That's crazy.
I know. $125 per ISBN. I don't know why. I don't know what, but I think like Germany is like that. And there's a few other countries, but Canada's totally free. They'll give you a bank of them for like 100 of them for nothing. You just ask. 10, you want 1, 10, or 100.
That's intimidating when I go out and it's like, you need one of these things to sell them on Amazon, right? Or you need one of these things to sell in the visitor center at the park that is near where he lived, right? You need these things. And I'm like, but I don't think I'm ever going to get that $150 back.
So, okay, 4 things. You're going to be number 6, the number 6 book with postcards.
About the Great White Fleet.
About the Great White Fleet.
Yeah.
I think you should do a video post explaining how you started off archiving things and how you found out the easier way to do it and the less expensive. But I would do a post about that because you learned. And if you can save, this is a Tony Robbins thing, if you can save somebody heartache and time because you've learned something, that's value. That's the value that you present is, and it doesn't need to be the service you provide. It can just be how you get into somebody's newsfeed. And with the hashtag, it would show up because they're doing something similar. The other two things were, while you were talking about the postcards, our dogs just went crazy and came in. Someone must open a door. As you were talking about the postcards, I could see the book. Like, I don't know if this is even a real thing. Maybe it's a documentary, but like a visual book where you're, and maybe you'd call it a documentary, but I can see the postcards on a map of all the different places they went. And it's like, this segment is about like the audiobook with your voice reading what was written on the postcards. Oh my God. Beautiful. But the other thing would be, I feel like there should be, if there's not already, some sort of someone reading the book, but it's a video format. So like, you can do an audiobook. We've never used audiobooks to put our kids to sleep, but if you could put on a YouTube video of someone reading a book with visuals that go along with it, you can do a static picture of just the cover, but you could also have like some visuals of the actual postcards with the text that you are writing. I mean, there's at least 4 different formats of that book. I can't wait to read it.
It's exciting. Yeah.
And the reason I'm so excited about that is because we have a friend of ours. I did a songwriter circle a few weeks back, and he had heard this story about a Portuguese sailor who was stationed in Newfoundland for some reason, and he used to go to the post office and mail letters back home. And something happened that he didn't think the last letter was going to make it back to his wife. So, because the boat sank. And so this last letter, so it was told from the perspective of the postal worker who used to stop and talk to this guy on the road when he'd see him in town or whatever. So he wrote this, the song is called The Portuguese Waltz. And it was about this letter that, I hope it makes it home to my wife and to my children and I might never see him again. I mean, it broke my heart, but it doesn't matter how the story ends. I'll tell you that the guy made it. He survived the boat sinking. But the song was like, oh my God, can you imagine back in those days? It painted such a picture of all it was a silly little letter that he was sending home. And it ended up getting to her. But the story behind it of like what they were going through at the time and what you write to a loved one, thinking that they only might get this postcard is like...
It's like time travel.
But it's such a storyteller. It's like, it's such a visceral thing. And like the actual document, because right now you'd fire off a text or an email. There's no, but a handwritten postcard, like he had to lick a stamp, like his DNA is in the glue. It's just beautiful. And you've got 300, that's a 300-page book, but it's just typing out what he wrote and having a lot of, a whole bunch of pictures of it in there or whatever, but there's so much potential. But it was given to you because you are the person who would be passionate about it. It wasn't given to another person. It wasn't another cousin or, God forbid, to your brother, because he just he just rolled doobies with it. I'm kidding. I don't know anything about you. We don't know your brother.
It is. So I've not thought about your Ken Burns effect thing. I hadn't thought about a YouTube video because I just said I watched YouTube videos and it was just postcard, and they're telling the story. It never once occurred to me I could do that.
Of course, you could do all of it.
Crazy.
And it comes in when you're ready. So even sometimes you don't feel like you're ready, but it's like, well, this information wouldn't have come if I was. And I'm not a religious person at all, but I do believe that there's some kind of energetic, creative thing that goes on. That you have these postcards for a reason. You are doing genealogy reports for a reason. We were invited to that family reunion. I think, if I'm not mistaken, your mom flew us down for that, didn't she?
She did, yeah.
I don't speak to her. We hate each other, but 14 years ago, she flew us to North Carolina for the reunion. So you were saying you weren't ready to start the YouTube channel, and it was like the first few videos, I can promise you, are going to be cringy. When you look back a year from now, it's going to be like, I can't believe I said that, or look the background, or listen to the sound, or whatever.
I'm so much better than that now.
Exactly. And it's like, if you wait till it's perfect, you might never start. But if you just start, you will learn things along the way. And I think sharing that vulnerability and like, this is what I learned. I don't know if that all translates over to genealogy reports, but I just feel like that's a more authentic. It's working for us. Like, I can't believe the momentum of the podcast right now is just, we're just in our basement goofing around, talking to each other and putting a camera on us. It's been really good for us.
Yeah.
So we're having a good time.
Yeah.
Blayne, it's been so great to reconnect. I know it has been way too long, and hopefully it won't be another 13 or 14 years before we talk again. Thank you so much for the genealogy report. So I think here in Canada, there's a few things like we might not have like a big database. We're probably not big on Ancestry.com, but libraries still have like those great big, newspaper, the microfiche and the newspaper archives and stuff. Yeah. So I'm more than happy to go into the libraries here because we do have a very good public library system. More than happy as we're traveling across the country, even if I need to go to different places and just, take videos of all the stuff they have in there.
Yeah, you just let us know what you need from us.
And so if anybody is on the Canadian side wondering about hiring Blayne, it is very possible, and he has connections, of course, across the country that'll also help. So, and in the U.S., I mean, it's open season. Blayne can find out just about anything.
So, what are your socials?
He'll find you. He'll find you anywhere you are. He'll find you.
Where can people find you on social media?
Sure, Blayne's Family Research, BLAYNES Family Research at Facebook and Instagram.
Awesome.
He spelled it way better. BLAYNES.
That's what you did.
I said BLAYNES. Family Research.
Yes. Gotta get the S. Gotta get the S in there.
And so, what is the YouTube channel going to be? Do you know? Is that already designated, or you haven't named it yet?
I've reserved it, but I hadn't done anything with it, so I would be out of step if I talked about
TBD.
it. TBD.
And so we
TBD.
have. I think we have about 15 YouTube channels altogether because every time you have a Google account, it automatically hooks you up with a YouTube. And so I've restarted so many times. And sometimes when I want to start a new project, I'll think, like, do I need to repurpose something I've already made, or is it okay to start fresh? And that's one of those barriers that keeps people from getting started. So, yeah. When you do have it ready, I'm sure you'll put... and one little tip. If you post something on YouTube, if you put a link on Facebook, it'll bury it. Facebook doesn't like when you send links to other places, because they want you to stay on Facebook. So Pinterest is the opposite. Pinterest is actually like a search engine. So if you start a Pinterest page, which you can, to show what you do and put your expertise on there and put the same material you're putting on all these other platforms, you can put on Pinterest. But it encourages links to go to outside places. Do you have a website?
No. If so I'm like a little baby, right? Infant and all this stuff. I do have a cousin who made up my logo, which I think is great. And he does web design. I talked to him over the Easter holiday. I think I'm at the point where there's just so much for me to do, right? And
that's a good place to be.
And do my clients. It's handling my client load versus, boy, I could use YouTube. I could use a website. I could use LinkedIn. And it's just finding the time to do all of those things.
Yeah,
it's a challenge.
But for now, everybody can find you on Facebook.
So maybe one of these days you'll have so many clients that like farming some of that stuff out to people. Like maybe we could be like a mobile marketing unit where you just send us a video and we just put it out everywhere that needs to go. And we design a website. Like, I don't know, maybe that's the thing in between gigs, in between opening for Nate Bargatze and all that. But I think opening those doors and going, this is like a little wish list, because lots of people can help you. You might, when people hear this, they might go, I mean, I wouldn't mind trading some research, some genealogy research. I could do and make sure you check your cousin's reviews. Make sure he's a good person to do your web design.
Yeah. He just started like me. We'd had this whole conversation. He's at the same spot. He's like, how do I break out of this social circle of family and friends to get to other people? And
word of mouth.
He's like, word of mouth, and as soon as he says it's going to cost X, it's crickets, right? And so he's
those are not your clients. Those are not your ideal clients. The people who will find you eventually, and it takes a little bit of patience and trust in yourself. But I think the right people will find you. But you got to get past those people that'll go, oh my God, I thought you would do it for free. I thought we were friends.
Right?
Do you guys get Schitt's Creek down there?
Yeah, we've watched it several times. We're watching it with the kid now.
There's a scene where
or something.
They're trying to get a discount for a family discount in the store, and he's like, "Why would you want to spend less in my store?"
That's right.
Big proponents of that, and I feel bad for people. I've been poor a lot of times in my life, and I feel kind of bad because sometimes people have no money, but that means you're not ready to get this. Like, you don't have a business idea; you have an idea. If you need everybody to do you favors to get off the ground, maybe it's not a business idea. And if you need people to do things for you for free, people have access to money. They really do. There's a pie, like there's a big pie, and you can, if you need money because you want to find out about your ancestry, it'll show up. I truly believe that people find money for things that they want, whether it's their kids' skating lessons or, harmony music lessons that adults go back to, or songwriting sessions. You find the money for the things you want, and so it's okay to receive money for the things that you do, especially even things you care about.
Especially things you care about.
If it's things you're having fun doing, it's still okay to make money doing those things and promoting each other and supporting each other and bartering. Like, that's a big thing too. If we have something of value that we can do for somebody else, I mean, I'm all for it. I got my teeth cleaned for free.
Oh, really? With the
I wouldn't have been in a rush to go to a dentist. I'm scared. I'm a scaredy cat. And it was just like, hey, how do you feel about coming to get your teeth cleaned? Like, yup. And then we went and did a podcast over in her office.
Yeah,
okay.
It was good. I liked it.
I'm hoping the Escalade people will be in touch.
Yeah, it was good. I like the remote. You're in a different environment.
It was pretty fun.
It sounded good.
I'm hoping the Cadillac Escalade people will call and say, if you'll put our logo on the side, you just take this on down to Nashville. And not Nashville. We're not going to Nashville. Tennessee. The whole state. I'm going to the whole state. We're going to Dollywood. We're going to Pigeon Forge. Where's that?
Eastern Tennessee. Yeah.
I always meant to go to Tennessee when Josh told me about Dollywood, so it's just a matter of, it's just a matter of time. And then we met you lovely people, so it's going to happen. The cousins are going to hang out. It's going to be awesome.
For sure.
Blayne, thank you so much for all the time. I don't know how long we've been on here. The dog is sleeping here next to me. He's in REM sleep. He's barking in his sleep. This has been fantastic, and thanks so much for all the support, for listening to everything that we do. We really appreciate it. Say hey to Kim and Maddie for us, and this has been awesome.
Yeah,
so
this
good
is
to talk to
great.
you.
I appreciate this opportunity a lot. I appreciate it a lot.
Same here. Thanks for the report, man. There's a whole lot of ghosts in my family going, oh man, look out.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
See ya.
So that was Blayne Clements. Pretty fantastic.
Josh said, what are you changing hats for? We're doing just an outro for the same show, but I just really like these hats. And this one says, what does this one say?
You're not the boss of me.
Boom. You heard it right
They were
here.
mostly directed at me snarkily.
Yep.
The hats that you made were snarky.
I would make another hat. I would make another hat right now that says snarkily is not a word.
Snarkily.
But we're doing good. 23 episodes in, haven't killed each other.
Yet.
Day's not over yet.
So what else did you learn since you got your report from Blayne?
So I got a name. Excuse me. I got a name from that report and got in touch with one of my. I guess she would be my great aunt, who was. So my grandfather was the oldest in a family, and I think there was 4 or 5 of them from that brood. And then I'm not sure what happened. I think his mom passed away, and his dad remarried and went on to have 19 more children.
That's an insane number.
It wasn't that insane for back in that day.
Still, like 19?
No, 24.
Yeah, but
because he had 5 before that.
I'm talking about 19 humans coming out of one human.
I'm
that's
impressed with
crazy.
one.
That's like animal. That's like a rabbit. That's like you find like a.
I think my great grandmother's going to come back and haunt you.
She's not your grandmother. She's your step great grandmother.
Okay, she's still going to haunt you.
But still, like
I would.
That's a crazy number. Like you'd have to.
It's a lot. You'd be
get
pregnant.
off her.
You'd be pregnant all the time.
He must have really liked her.
Yeah, or they had nothing else to do.
They
well, it was
really
back in really cold. It was colder back then. Not as many blankets and socks and things like that, so you had to stay warm.
It was before the blanket was invented.
Yep, and it was just harder
You had to rub
times.
your legs
It was
together.
harder times back. What?
You had to rub your legs together to stay warm.
Or each other's legs together. But yeah, so it turns out that I have a whole mess of cousins.
So you looked up people, yeah.
And so turns out, I didn't know this, but my grandfather was the oldest in his family, and I got in contact with his baby sister, who was a twin. And there was 2 babies who died very, very young within the first year of their life. So there was, I think, 25 altogether that my great-grandfather had. And just finding the names, like going back through that there was a sister Josephine, so there was an Aunt Jo back in the day, which was, it really felt like somebody was coming back from the dead to give me a hug, because it was like...
It's like time travel.
It was, well, I met her, and we're connected now on Facebook, and she has, there was pictures on her page of my grandfather's father, and they looked exactly the same.
So that would have been her dad, right? So she was like your grandfather's stepsister.
Half-sister.
Half-sister.
Half, yeah, because they had the same dad.
Okay. So her dad would have been your grandfather's dad too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was pictures from like a wedding from one
really
of her sisters
cool.
or something like that. So it was really like someone reaching back generations and giving me a hug and letting me know. I don't know.
You really like that grandfather.
Oh, favorite person of all time.
But he died when you were little, right?
6. Yeah. He was amazing, and but it was really like meeting his little sister, like his baby sister was pretty sweet. And she's, I don't know, mean, he would have been got over 100 by now. I guess
He never would have made it.
That's a joke from Seinfeld. Josh didn't look up his family, so read the hat. Anyway, Blayne, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah,
and
it was
thanks
really
so
fun.
much for all the support. I mean, it's been literally years.
I was a little worried when we were going to interview Blayne. I was like, we haven't talked to Blayne in 14 years. It was just that one time at the family reunion. We're just connected on social media. I was like, what if he's a weirdo? Like, what if this turns out like, ugh, no, I'm really glad we weren't living close by. Like, but no, it was really good. He's really cool. He's really fun and nice. And
well, listening to Josh edit the podcast afterwards and fix up the audio and all that kind of stuff, because we used Riverside for the first time. And it sounded like Barack Obama was in our house.
I know, his voice really, yeah.
Amazing voice.
I was going to say that at the beginning of the podcast, to listen, go back, just turn back and listen to the interview and close your eyes and picture us talking to Barack Obama, because that's what Blayne sounds like to me.
And he was so sweet. And it was like, yeah, of course, this is, and it was like no time had passed. It was like, oh yeah, of course, this is why we got along so well, because he's amazing.
Yeah, super nice.
And he likes us, which is also one of my favorite traits, which is why I loved my grandfather so much, because I was the favorite grandchild. Even though there was Susan, there was like 100 of us.
Susan.
And it turns out that my grandfather made a lot of my cousins feel like they were the center of the world.
So maybe he was just a nice guy. Maybe he was just a good grandfather.
He was amazing. He was absolutely amazing. And so to get that glimpse into his life and be able to connect with people now who look like him and have stories about him, and like he was a musician, and all I ever heard about him when I was a kid was that he played I don't know if it was I think he played accordion or harmonica or something. And when he would have a few drinks, he would start doing some songs, and my grandmother would say, "Oh, there he goes singing them Sam and Ear tunes again."
Sam and Ear tunes.
I didn't know what that meant, but he was from Sam and Ear, and so he was a musician, and I don't know what it was like when they all got together, because they probably liked music up there.
Well, if there was 24 or whatever like that, there had to be a big family band happening.
Hopefully I'll find out more about that as time goes on, but it was really, really great to get.
We're probably going to have Blayne do some more research.
I didn't realize how much I would love it.
Yeah.
I really didn't, because it was like, yeah, sure. I mean, yeah. But because I was like, this isn't going to go very far because I don't know anything. And I even asked some people in my family, and they all claimed to not know any of the names, not even his mom's maiden name. So anyway, found out a whole bunch of stuff and connected with some family that was just very special to me. And so thanks to Blayne for that. And for
it was really fun.
I just impressed that someone would think, hey, I'd like to be on the podcast and do this thing, and they follow that impulse. Like, that blows my mind. I think that's very brave. Because we're just a couple of goofballs doing a podcast, so.
I think this is a very serious podcast.
Do you? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, this has been Are You Mad at Me? Stay tuned for. We got some guests coming up on the next podcast. So this is episode 23. Congratulations, we made it, and thanks for listening. And just like we talked about in the interview with Blayne, leave a review. Yeah. It makes a big deal. Makes a big difference. It boosts us in the algorithm, and it would be doing us a big solid to let people know that you're listening. Now, if it's like a thing you're doing on the down low and just your dirty little secret that, like, I love these guys, they're so funny, but I don't want anybody to know, that's okay.
That's fine.
Yeah. But if
we get it.
But if it is a thing that you feel like sharing,
we get it.
We get it.
We understand.
But anyway, if you'd leave a review on any of the platforms that you're listening on, we would certainly appreciate it. And tune in next week when you'll hear Rocky say.
I don't know what Rocky said. I don't know. How did he? I don't have any catchphrases. No, we were watching Rocky and Bullwinkle the other day.
Because I'm almost finished my third book, and we can't decide on the cover, and so we've got an alternate cover on the back, which is like, remember the episodes of Rocky and Bullwinkle?
They say, tune in next week for a big adventure, or Rocky falls down a well, or whatever. It'd be like two different titles.
The next book might have two covers, is just what I'm saying. But anyway,
alternate covers.
I'm Vickie Morgan. Sorry, there's more?
Well, I just wanted to say, Brett Goldstein, British comedian, has a special out, and he has this whole thing about getting off the phone, British people getting off the phone. I think it's exactly the same here in Newfoundland, because every time we go to end a podcast, there'll be like, when I'm editing, I notice, or when the team is editing, it's like, we're like, okay, well, that's the end of the podcast. Thanks for listening. And then there's 20 minutes of podcast left after that, because we get so distracted and go off on tangents. And
I think that's an Irish goodbye. It's the Irish, the goodbye tour. Yeah.
But he said he'd be talking on the phone to an American, and they're like, "Okay, bye," and they hang up, and he's like texting him afterwards, going, "Are you mad at me? Is there? Are we in a fight? Right? I pulled it all together."
Can we get a clip of him saying that and have that as our?
I don't think
outro?
he actually said that, but it was the gist.
I think he might have. But I will say on Nateland, we haven't mentioned Nateland. This episode. Did we?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to mention it again.
801-pound gorilla.
Oh, but they also do this thing at the end where he, like, did you guys have anything else? And then he says goodbye.
So I'm going to be in Kansas City playing at the no. That's not.
He ends every podcast also with saying, "I love you guys, appreciate it." And
we're not there yet. I think just stop pushing the relationship. We like you. You're okay, but like I don't know if I'm ready to say I love you to our audience yet.
We're getting to know each other.
Yeah,
it's 23
early.
episodes in. I think it might be time to take it to the next level, Josh.
I like you. I'm willing to commit.
That's some over the close.
I like
that's
you.
An over the close grope. I think at 23 episodes in, isn't it?
All right, now we're done.
You cut this part out. You guys should cut that part out. That was vulgar. All right. Thanks for listening, and thanks again to Blayne. And check him out on Facebook and Instagram. It's at Blayne's Family Research, and we appreciate him. We just love him. We love Blayne.
Yes,
we're ready
Blayne
to say we
Kim
love Blayne
and Maddie very much.
Absolutely, and we can't wait to come to Tennessee and hang out. So,
can you guys stop it?
Thanks for being on the podcast, and say hi to the Beagles.
All right, we'll see you next week.
See ya.